Well, ladies and lads, I have given a small slice of the MMA world more than an earful when it comes to Raquel Pennington and Julianna Peña. I have had my ups and downs as a fan with both of these athletes. I have shouted from the highest peak I could climb over on Substack years back about this fight. I have defended them. I have had literal war cries against them. Of course, I can't be the only one out there, right? There are some out there somewhere that have been invested in these two since The Ultimate Fighter 18, just like me, right? You know what? I don't even care if I'm alone in this lowest of key rivalry. These two are the last of a dying breed and are worth the attention. They both arrived to the grand stage for MMA at the same time, on the same night. That was in 2013, so it isn't at all a leap in logic for one to question why they haven't seen each other in the octagon this entire time. I mean, it's not like the women's bantamweight division was overly booked with stacked talent, right?
Have you been able to, do you think about the last couple fights? Do you think about what happened, or have you processed it all? The end of the last fight against Amanda or Holly?
Just so we are all clear, we are talking about two fighters that were on the same Ultimate Fighter season, with Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate as the coaches. Two fighters that somehow ended up being booked around each other for over 10 years, while being in the same division the entire time. Who to blame is basically a pick'em, as both Raquel and Julianna have what should be career-crippling trails of injuries behind them, and the UFC itself hasn't always had this fight in focus. Between them, broken backs, torn ACLs, MCLs, broken hands, wrists, ribs, and actually a lot more unfortunately exists in their history, before and during their professional careers.
I've torn 4 out of 5 ligaments in my knee and came back from that, actually both knees.
One can tease and make fun to their heart's content, but 95% of us out there wouldn't be able to survive all of this and come out the other end as a world champion of a combat sport. Something I don't think is realized by enough people is that basically during their entire UFC careers, the company has been preoccupied with other athletes they thought were the ones worth focusing on for their division. Ronda Rousey had so much fluffed hype behind her when Amanda was monkey stomping the whole roster, and Ronda finally got booked to fight her. The entire media narrative was on Ronda. Almost nothing was even said about Amanda. I vividly remember watching and reading all the news surrounding that fight. What's weird is I completely forgot about it for a bit. Rocky actually reminded me of that entire situation when I asked her about being underappreciated as a champion.
Eventually it'll come. Respect will be paid. For sure. I truly believe that, and I was talking a lot to Amanda, and it's the same thing. You had Ronda Rousey, who was a dominating champion. Mm-hmm. When Ronda left, Amanda's the champion. And when she came back to fight Amanda, you didn't hear about Amanda during that time. All you heard about was Ronda's return. It was all about Ronda.
Now, I think it's relevant and even important to remember what happened with Ronda Rousey before she exited the UFC and began crossing over to the WWE.
But everything that could be said that was negative was said, and I feel like I'm really vilified by MMA media at this point, and I'm not really welcome back, which is why I haven't gone to a UFC fight since, because I'm pretty sure if I walked into the arena I'd be booed.
No.
Yeah.
Chael Sonnen called it when he called her a cautionary tale. I remember being a very big fan of Ronda from the get. I can't remember how or where, but I watched her and Miesha's fight on a Strike Force event and followed both ever since. I still consider myself a fan of the Rowdy one for her body of work in competition and first run in WWE, if nothing else. I was hopeful for her second run in WWE all the way up until the end. Her match with Shayna Baszler, in my opinion, should have been something epic. I have to kneel in humility and be honest in saying Shayna's match with Valerie Loureda at NXT Battleground, I still don't call her Lola Vice.
From what I can tell, Valerie Loureda is about as petty as Israel Adesanya, if not more so.
I've now become the first Cuban-American woman, and I am now a WWE superstar.
Wow.
Congratulations.
I'm really excited.
We saw you tonight perform. Your kicks were on point. They were on target. You used a lot of spinning kicks, a lot of spinning elbows.
Did I?
Yes, you did.
I did that just to piss people off because my last fight, the back fist thing, I literally remember just throwing it just to say because I know I could land it. I just did it on purpose.
Was better than what Shayna and Ronda provided for Ronda's exiting match at SummerSlam. But little things always stuck with me throughout Ronda's reign over the UFC. Ronda was unnecessarily aggressive and bully-like to Miesha Tate on Tough 18. It was like she was always the first one to sink, the lowest for a response or action. I've always said and still stand by the words, these fighters owe us nothing. But Ronda's return to face Nunes should have been marketed in a completely different way, and Ronda should have not made it all about her. By not doing media, the story became her not doing media. By not doing media, she diminished the importance of the fight as a whole and raised the importance of herself. Ronda wasn't about passing the torch, and it is my opinion she wasn't even about being a reigning champion again. Why am I bringing this up? Why is Chael correct in declaring her a cautionary tale? It is my belief that this is where the interest and hype in women's bantamweight and WMMA in general kind of basically got flatlined, save a few jolts like Wiley and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Ever since then, it's been perpetually evolving into the fan base being even more distant from a once great division. Maybe I'm still not over how Ronda handled things before, during, and after the Nunes fight. But if you go back to every fight Ronda had in the UFC, she simply dismissed all challengers. How does a division remain interesting and relevant if it isn't interesting or relevant to the champion? Alex Pereira notwithstanding. It's concerning, as the current #1 contender of the women's bantamweight division is, in my opinion, doing the same thing. When Amanda boxed down Ronda, she left the venue dead silent, and the only people really celebrating in that venue were her and her team, and a few Brazilians sprinkled about. Ronda inadvertently set the tone for Amanda's entire run. Julianna Peña has been dismissive of every single fighter in the division. On top of that, she has denied every fighter in the division when they have called her out to compete. This has been happening for years now. Peña recently said she likes being the most hated fighter in the division.
Called yourself the most hated person in the division.
Yeah, well,
why do you feel that way?
I feel like all these girls, they all want to fight me, you know what I mean? And they are always talking so much smack about me. It's been happening since The Ultimate Fighter. It's like for some reason I rub people the wrong way, particularly girls in the 135 and 45 pound division. And they all want a piece of the Peña power, so.
This has been more go away heat than I'd like to fight her heat for quite some time now. You combine this with the same over-the-top type of statements made by Ronda Rousey and you end up in a vicious cycle. Ronda to this day is dismissing fighters that came before her, fighters that came after her, and the present division as a whole. There is a difference between the two though. Ronda was active and took on all available competition. She cleaned out her division at the time. Julianna has yet to fight anybody active in the division. Peña is in the top 10 of the bantamweights that should be, at least in theory, its biggest or one of its biggest stars. And she has been inactive longer than any other fighter in the entire division. Not only is she in the top 10, she is the #1 contender. Of course, it isn't Julianna's responsibility to lift up anything in the UFC or women's MMA at all. But since losing to Amanda in the rematch, Peña has came across to many as being annoyed by the idea of the sport. Somewhere along the way, the Vixen lost a step or two in being in the trenches of MMA, allegedly in my opinion. But I've followed Julianna's entire career from day one, and her ability to articulate and analyze has always been above average at worst. At the same time, she doesn't know who Virna Jandiroba is?
Oh, no.
You don't know who's the main event?
No, I don't.
Right there.
Who? Where?
Legend.
Who? Her?
Yes.
Stop it.
Main event.
Maine.
Do you know who that is?
This is just such a slap in the face to me. I swear to
Do you
God.
know?
In regards to Raquel Pennington, Julianna Peña has an ever-shifting tone. Peña has shown respect to Rocky in subtle ways, but her offensive is much more pronounced. On the surface, the offensive presented comes from an unclear motive, as Julianna was the one to win Season 18 for The Ultimate Fighter, the first one out of the two of them to become champion, and the one to defeat Amanda Nunes. The Venezuelan vixen seems to be misremembering their time on The Ultimate Fighter, and at The Ultimate Fighter house, in speaking with Ariel, she said Rocky was disliked and Rocky was two-faced during their time on the show. To note, I am summarizing here, you can assume inference for yourself from the clip.
She's a submission artist, so that kind of stresses me out.
You just gotta believe in yourself.
I almost feel like I have more pressure than anybody for some reason.
Did she say she was gonna kick my ass? Yeah.
When there's a little bullying in the house going on, I gotta remember, well, actually, I'm not gonna let them bully me. I'm gonna bully right back, you know?
I like everybody in the house. Julianna is really the only one that was kind of bugging me, but she's pretty good looking, so she might be able to get away with it a little bit longer. Today, Julianna decides that she wants to spend every second in the house talking in a horrific English accent.
Julie has her days. Some days she's okay, other days it's just unbearable.
Back to the middle school days, like check yes or no if you like me type of deal, you know? Like it's very immature, I feel like. You're saying that I told the other team the matchups. That's ridiculous. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
No, you told them. That's all there is to it.
Okay, well, I didn't. You're making stuff up.
We know you told them.
You're so full of it's hilarious. You're so, wow.
Logically speaking here, who's the one girl who's fought so far? Who doesn't care if the other team finds out who we're matching up against? Julianna.
No way.
I think she'll deny it and deny it and deny it, but she's got a huge guilty look on her face. She's got guilty spelled right across her forehead.
I don't want to be pointing fingers. However, Roxanne, you sleep in the same room as them. Did you say anything?
When we first started rooming together, we made a pact not to talk about training or anything like that.
Roxanne's a samurai, so I wouldn't question her.
You're not supposed to accuse somebody unless you know for a fact. For a fact.
Just brought up some facts.
Some facts? What facts? You have no facts. You have nothing.
How do you think she looked on the scale?
Great, strong, yeah. Stay off the needle, bro.
What happened with Myra? Because I think, didn't she have like a suspension or something?
Yeah, she's a cheater.
Because you're messing with my livelihood, right?
In my life, this is my livelihood. This is how I make my living.
Recently, people haven't been getting along very well with Julianna, so I think that many people kind of pointed the finger at her, and I think she felt attacked, so she kind of started pointing the finger at other people, and I got pointed at.
You would think with Julianna beating Shayna and getting them control and getting a huge victory for her team and everything, that they'd all be happy with it, but I think they're all super irritated with her.
She is supposed to be the youngest champion ever. That didn't play out that well either. You know, she's losing to Roxanne Modafferi. I mean, like,
Roxanne's a total sweetheart. I love her to death, but to hell with them all.
The truth is, at least for what was presented to the public on TV, that Julianna was the one people, nearly everyone, had issues with in trusting or even tolerating. Somewhere in the middle of watching this tough season for the third time, I realized it was long ago that Peña wasn't about trying to make friends after her ego was checked by the social dynamic in the house. I have previously stated that the climate of MMA, or just the climate of the country, was very different during this time, especially when it came to women's MMA. In Julianna's defense, it was quite possible and plausible that she was intimidating to some men and women in that house on one level or another. She indeed got a lot of focus and camera time, and it was because she stood out. Some guys aren't going to like pretty girls around their work, quotes around pretty, and women can be harsh to each other, especially during this time. That's the furthest I'm taking this aspect of their dynamics. Julianna has always pumped other people for information, especially when it comes to information about her present day. The vixen professes at every opportunity that she no longer is worried about being liked or disliked, and indulges in the idea of being the most hated female on the roster.
They don't like you. I don't like you.
I don't care.
Nobody likes you.
To me, it feels like a resignation in trying to be liked by the public or fellow fighters. Peña very much cared to be liked by the public at one point. She now seems detached from the fans and the fight game in general more than ever. Peña speaks well, and she has often displayed a deep knowledge of the game. That combination, in theory, should make for a fan favorite fighter. Why does she choose this path? Raquel Pennington has seemingly kept the same energy throughout her entire career. I am certain that old Rocky at one point or another has been out of pocket somewhere on camera, but I can't find it. Believe me, over the past 11 years, I've looked. Going through the season again, all I can really see and feel about Rocky during that time is she tried to level with everyone. Julianna withstanding. The most interesting thing about Rocky on the show is how both Misha and Dana are critical of the very same thing that Rocky's coaches and even Rocky herself are critical of to this day, letting them hands fly. One can't help but wonder what causes Raquel at times to hold back her fists of fury. Even then, and without a hand injury, would she have thrown to satisfaction of all parties concerned against Julianna in the tough finale if that was how it all played out and she didn't lose to Jessica Rakoczy?
Hey, how are you? I'm very family oriented. My mom's so proud of me. Like, I wouldn't be here without her. She's my #1 support. And I always told my parents I wanted to box, and they told me no, I was too pretty and my teeth were too nice. And I started training. I feel great. I mean, it's like a dream come true. Never had stitches, so throwing me off, but overall I feel great. I feel like I performed pretty well. I could have let loose a little bit more, but I just had to get used to the jitters and everything else without what I'm used to. And
I'm not your coach and I'm not your trainer, but if you let your hands go more, you throw your hands more, you'll beat anybody here.
I think Dana thought it was a great fight, but he told me that he's rooting for me and that, you know, he wants me to win the whole show. Get my feelings hurt easily, kind of. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, if they pick her, that means they like her more, you know? So I'm like, I want all the coaches on my side. Everybody usually likes me for the most part, you know? And so, like, it's really weird to, like be in a house where, like, I feel like everybody hates me.
I'm inclined to believe that after Julianna defeated Shayna Baszler, the coaches and Dana knew who was the bee's knees. I believe the eyes were on Pennington and Peña from early on, and they were pegged to shine brightest. I also believe Rocky and Vix felt this as well. The entire time, I truly do. This is why, in my view, a rivalry exists between them. It is why it is mixed martial arts. Very much Ken and Ryu vibes, although we may not see Hadoukens and super uppercuts in the fight itself. I do not believe Rocky is harboring tough 18 results to this day. Julianna now claims to be over her winning the season and has forgotten about it. But not too long ago, it was one of her counterpoints to anyone saying she didn't deserve a title shot or a rematch with Nunes. She was very proud of it, as she should be. So why the turn? Not to mention, she has also brought it up again as a source of accomplishment after dismissing it with Ariel.
I'm the first ever woman to win the Ultimate Fighter. Sorry you're mad you didn't win the show. That was 13 years ago. Haven't thought about it since. Sorry.
My favorite story from the Ultimate Fighter was winning.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Whatever Peña's true reasoning is for the public personality change, it seems to be working to some extent for her. We may never know why Julianna changed her tune time and again since 2019. One could assume that, being she is an intelligent person, she is aware of her time as a fighter in the UFC is coming to a close and has been aware of it for several years due to how much she has missed during prime years and nothing but big fights matter at this point. It can be justified if you consider all things. We are well aware of Raquel's support system and how closely they all move together. Julianna does not allow us to peer into her private life in the same manner. She once tried to even say she didn't know how old she was when Joe Rogan asked her. The only recent time I can recall her letting the guard down and being real was with Ariel in New York, when she declared she was fighting depression from being out so long with the injury.
Can I be vulnerable with you guys?
Please, let's be vulnerable here, Julianna.
Aside from this, I'm like in a sinking depression hole. You know what
really?
I mean? Yes,
I'm
there's
sorry.
nothing more depressing than being injured.
Now, this is something I'm sure all fighters go through at one point or another. If you recall, Dustin Poirier had an excellent expression of self-doubt, anxiety, and depression while speaking to Ariel and being honest with the public and himself. But for it to come from Peña at this point, after so much seemingly delusional and outlandish takes and opinions, was a special rarity. In my opinion, it was the last little breath of the Julianna we all once knew, the one many of us became enamored with and turned us into fans. However, the truth is that Raquel Pennington has not been a fighter below Julianna since they were on the show.
I'm fighting Shayna Baszler. Very first went to a huge Strikeforce card. She was there fighting on it, and she gave me her fight shirt, and I took pictures with her, and I already knew who she was when I saw her, so I was like totally like honored, you know, and I was like, wow, that's Shayna Baszler, you know.
I'm not in this house with you. You're in this house with me.
And when I first got into the sport, Shayna was who I looked up to.
I fought where the top payday was a $300 cash under the table. Like, it was really frustrating. I've spent so much time just busting my tail. See what that is?
Spade.
Yeah!
Do you normally put cards in your opponent's boobs?
She was pretty hot about that, huh?
Pennington got a title shot long before Peña. Pennington had an outstanding performance against Miesha Tate, and ever since has been fighting more frequently than Julianna. Peña wasn't fighting up, she was nursing injuries. Since 2017, Julianna is 3-3. Raquel is 7-3.
I first started martial arts as a middle schooler doing karate because I saw the Power Rangers and I wanted to be a good person and beat up the bad guys.
Are we overrating Julianna's victory over the Lioness? Because she got that title shot off of a victory 11 months prior over Sarah McMahon, who wasn't even considered to be elite at the time. I, for one, feel that Julianna defeating Nunes in their first fight damn near balances out all of that time off and lack of activity, almost. Nobody expected Peña to beat Nunes. I'll never forget watching that fight live. I jumped higher than I have in 15 years. But does anyone believe it was elite abilities that got her the fight to begin with? Peña is marketable and always has been. Outside of Mayra Bueno Silva, nobody in the division has really tried to ramp up interest since Amanda left. While the Vix gets clicks, she isn't driving interest in her fights. And there are two obvious reasons for this. One, she isn't fighting anyone. Two, she isn't showing interest or importance to the fights in front of her. Julianna has gotten comfortable in making jokes and playing down every single fighter in her division, including the champion. You combine this with how much time she has been away, her inability to forget about Amanda, just like Ronda, and the way she lost the last time we saw her, then you get a void for the top of the division when it comes to driving interest. Half of the fans want her to lose and leave forever. The other half want her to win just because they think Rocky is boring and doesn't talk enough trash. But imagine if Rocky was talking just as crazy as Julianna over the past 5 years. How cringe this entire thing would be. This existing personality dynamic, in my opinion, is what MMA or martial arts is all about. But Julianna lacks the resume or activity to hold the water. She is working with a glass house built off of despair. Raquel Pennington has truly been fighting her way up and even taking steps down to reinforce her position amongst the other bantamweights. Outside of throwing hands more and finishing rate, there really isn't anything to hold against Rocky regarding her career. She took the fights she was offered. She took on those calling her out. She went in under the weather and busted Mayra's eardrum on her way to victory, and immediately called out Julianna Peña. On the flip side, one has to wonder and ask and be real about, who has Peña called out? Let me ask another way. Who called out Peña?
Eventually Holly Holm called you out. Like, would anything else be difficult to get motivated for, do you think?
And the problem I have with other women in the division calling me out is that they need to understand one thing. Amanda, the champion, doesn't have a fight booked.
Right.
Booked.
Right.
Booked.
Right.
Why are you calling me out? I don't have the belt. Call out the champion, you know what I mean? The fact that you're calling me out tells me that you don't have the confidence enough to beat Amanda.
Huh? That she still hasn't fought Caitlyn, Macy, Irene, Norma, Mayra, Holly. I mean, we have to live in reality here. One thing I'm sure will come up is Pennington saying she is done in between rounds in her contest against Amanda Nunes. There was a ton of scrutiny towards her coaches about this, and though some of it may be valid, it is no longer pertinent. I believe Rocky gets as nervous and anxious for a fight as anyone else, and sometimes she can get in her own way, but more times than not she overcomes it. That's why she is your sitting champion. Had Peña taken on even one person and secured victory between now and her loss to Amanda in the rematch, I believe the narrative and perception would be very different. It's difficult to ignore the activity of Raquel and how Kayla is taking on Ketlen Vieira while waiting for a title shot and frame Peña as a deserving elite competitor.
I'm gonna be making you look like a hot mama.
All I'm picturing is blue all over my eyes.
Pretty much what it looks like.
We have to be honest, this fight should have happened at least 4 years ago. At the very least, does the delay make it any more or any less interesting? For me, it depends on your own interest level. MMA media has been consistent over the past 2 years or so in declaring there is no interest in the women's bantamweight division. I have to call out media here and challenge them in saying that it's up to you to make it interesting. It shouldn't be, but what MMA media does is pick and choose what to cover and drive into those algos relentlessly for clicks. If you had been properly covering Raquel Pennington, Ketlen, Hossa, etc., shout out to Daddy Segura for his efforts, then there would be fucking interest in this title fight. Instead, they want to do things like interview Kayla Harrison and ask about how badly she wants to beat up Julianna Peña. Drizzy and Izzy, Black and White Africa, Strickland, MGK, Hawk Tua Karate Combat, Mackenzie Dern's ass, Darren Till, Dylan Dennis, Jake Paul, Jorge Masvidal, Nate Diaz fucking boxing. This is the shit you drive to casual and bypassing fans. So stop bitching. You're not even trying. No, there is no marketable blonde dominator with pouty lips. No, there is no lioness finishing opponents with brutality. There is no hypersexualized fighter in the division that throws ass on social media or generational talent knocking out bitches with head kicks and spinning back fists. But there is Raquel Pennington and Julianna Peña, two of the most contrasting personalities you're going to find on the roster right now. There is over 10 years of history to be looked at. Yeah, MMA media and UFC, I believe it's perpetual laziness that is to blame for the apathetic feel to this fight more than Rocky's lack of trash talk or Julianna's excessive delusional promos. I've said it before, Raquel Pennington and Julianna Peña have had two of the roughest careers out of all active in the UFC. As women, it takes it to even higher levels. The amount of setbacks the both of them have experienced is nearly unheard of. And this is just public information we are talking about right now. I can't make it any clearer than I already have in a previous video. So she didn't make it up on her own. I think it was a ploy to drive hype, pushing Rocky out. Fuck that. Raquel Pennington should fight Julianna Peña next for the title as co-main or feature. Yeah, I said it, done. I think there is an overwhelming amount of people that are unaware of what these two have been through. To be fair, their gaps in activity probably facilitate the assumption. It is true there is no young, hungry up-and-comer that has us on high alert for this division. Personally, I'm not excited at the idea of Valentina moving up, who cares? Which in my mind makes the fight that much more important. Kayla Harrison is not here for a long time, and she knows it. I believe it's why she took on the next fight. She has to balance that competitive drive, and at the same time has to fight at 135. In other words, she is a shot in the arm for the division, but not the young, hungry up-and-comer the MMA media and the UFC is seemingly relying on to make the division great again. The fight between Rocky and Vixen is the establishment of the new era of women's bantamweight in the UFC. No matter who wins, they both could retire, which would leave a vacant belt. Julianna could win and call out Amanda, which would cause all kinds of media frenzy given that Kayla is in the middle if she beats Ketlen, and if Ketlen wins, you better believe she's gonna be vocal about it. Raquel could win and call out Kayla right away if Kayla beats Ketlen, of course. Even if Kayla lost to Ketlen, a new era is still established. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But how the fuck would we even know if no platform duck-face talking MMA media heads tells us about it? Never mind the UFC and its fucking influencer puppets themselves. The future is just as interesting as the past when it comes to the timeline of these two. How were they never booked to fight each other? I mean, according to them and Dana, it has never even been offered. I was certain that Julianna Peña would be at UFC 300. In fact, I still firmly believe this was the idea.
Raquel, obviously, there's now a vacant title. You're on the longest win streak in the division. When are you fighting Julianna Peña?
It should have been yesterday, but I guess I'll wait until I get the call from UFC. For me, I'm hoping maybe around November, December timeframe would be a perfect timeframe. Give me time to enjoy the family and then get into a solid fight camp.
The question was, who did the UFC have in mind for her? Even going back to 2023, UFC IFW, Raquel was on the red carpet confused as to why they still haven't fought. You could go back even further.
I have my overall own opinion about Julianna. I mean, we went on The Ultimate Fighter together, and it stems from way back then. I feel like Amanda was a true champion, a professional champion, and I feel like, Julianna, she definitely believes in herself and everything, but half the shit that's coming out of her mouth is it's extremely frustrating. I remember years ago, Dana always thought that me and Julianna would be the ones to meet up in the finale for The Ultimate Fighter.
Not far enough? How about 8 years back?
Oh, I definitely belong there. Julianna, she's sitting here, she's climbing the ranks and doing everything. But, I was on the show with her, and there's a lot of heat there. It's somebody that I definitely want. When it comes down to the politics and stuff, it's something that I have to wait for. I got to correct my record a little bit. So if that's the path that I'm supposed to be on, then I'll just continue to prove myself.
Julianna has not once called out Raquel Pennington for a fight. Peña wasn't making any noise that convinced anyone until she actually submitted Amanda. She was more of an annoyance than anything. Maybe that's why the UFC never bothered in booking the fight, or when it was considered, one or both of them were injured. Going through the interviews and media clips, I can't find or remember Raquel playing coy when Peña was brought up. She has always kept the same energy. That doesn't mean that Julianna has been ducking the current champion, but the fight wasn't one she was seeking either. This, in my opinion, has to be at least one of the driving factors for Rocky when it comes to Julianna. The camera time accusations from the Tough cast towards Julianna came from a brutal truth. It still exists for Peña today. She gets more camera time in 2024 than any other bantamweight on the roster, and that's while being the longest inactive, including the not active Amanda Nunes. While her out-of-this-world takes keep Ariel sitting down with her, her appearance doesn't hurt either. But it isn't all about looks, of course. It's not like Raquel is some chump in the looks department, and I'd say the two of them are tied for the best smile in the game. So what gives?
Gosh. Coming in, banging around, be like, oh, getting into bed, being like,
You're so loud. You're so loud. This is your ass over here. Let me show you.
No.
This is you. You're like, what pill do I need today? Hold on, I need another one. Hold on, I need this one. Hold on. Oh, hold on, let me put some back. Oh, hold on, I need one more.
That is
and
not
then you're like,
true.
give me some Velcro.
I did not get my shirt rondified.
I, for one, believe that over time, there have been many reasons this fight has never happened. If I had to guess where it all started, I'd say it's where Raquel injured her hand in between fights on Tough. Looking back, the show itself foreshadowed Rocky's loss to Jessica Rakoczy. As I've said before, Raquel can get in her own way, and it's quite possible her mental game wasn't all there for the fight. Maybe Jessica was just better that day. But to deny that Raquel could have done better is laughable. Had she won, Pennington and Peña may not have even been a thing today, as they would have fought in 2013 at the end of the season, barring any injuries. Dana White saw something special in both of them from the start, and I believe there were some ideas going through his head about both of their careers that never actually came through. There is simply no denying the heat that existed between Ronda and Julianna. It is my belief that had Julianna fought Jessica Andrade at UFC 171 like she was supposed to and won, her and Ronda would have faced each other in the second half of 2014. Julianna had an accident in the gym she was training at during the time in Spokane, Washington, where she's originally from, injuring her knee with ACL, MCL, LCL, and meniscus tears. For those unaware of how serious of an injury this is, here is an image of the knee and ligaments Peña tore. It was basically a death sentence to any idea of an athletic career, but she somehow pulled through all the way to being being the champion of the UFC. Dana was
a little more than pissed about it.
He declared it an attack on her. Now, you can argue the hyperbole and all that, but what I picked up was his idea of Julianna's 2014 was gone. But again, Dana also liked Raquel, so she was the one that stepped up to face Andrade at UFC 171. I think this was done with the idea that if Rocky can win, she can face Ronda the second half of 2014. Ronda had fought only a month prior. They would have all been on the same timeline. Well, Rocky lost via split decision to Bate, and neither Julianna or Raquel got a crack at Ronda in 2014. Due to various injuries and family issues, they never would. Raquel Pennington would have to fight her way back up, but after submitting Ashley Evans Smith via Bulldog choke, Holly stopped her momentum. The split decision victory on her way to defeating Ronda. Amanda Nunes was quietly ascending. Ronda was at a point that only big fights mattered, and only big fights could be booked. With her, she was too big of a star and had too much of an ego to pay attention to anyone below her. Sound familiar? Ronda sat out and sat down with the likes of Ellen and cried about Travis and babies. Ronda Rousey handled her loss to Holly Holm about as bad as anyone could ever handle a loss in combat sports. Sound familiar? Julianna Peña has seen herself in the same way since she defeated Amanda and has yet to move on from it. There have been certain statements from her that indicate she is somewhat self-aware of her situation, but she is reluctant to show any cracks in this hyper version of herself that she has created for the public eye. I believe Julianna is a big reason why this fight has yet to happen until now. From what I understand, she has never said no to fighting Raquel, but she has ignored all potential fights since losing to Amanda Nunes, choosing to sit out longer than Amanda at this point, re-injuring her rib, and accusing other fighters of cheating. While there is room for speculation against Julianna herself regarding BPC 157, she was asked by Mike Bone about fighters calling her out after she lost the belt to Amanda, and her response was,
eventually Holly Holm called you out. Like, would anything else be difficult to get motivated for, do you think?
The problem I have with other women in the division calling me out is that they need to understand one thing. Amanda, the champion, doesn't have a fight booked. Booked. Why are you calling me out? I don't have the belt. Call out the champion, you know what I mean? The fact that you're calling me out tells me that you don't have the confidence enough to beat Amanda.
Meanwhile, Raquel has fought everyone thrown in front of her while going through the same amount of injuries and is on a 6-fight winning streak, becoming champion in the process.
Someone should hold your pads and knows what they're doing. No. You don't even know how to hit pads. Are you kidding me? I don't know how to hit pads? You don't even know how to throw punches. Yo, Edmund, come here.
Raquel Pennington and Julianna Peña are, in my opinion, two fighters that do not get the flowers they deserve. There is no one else in the division in their company. Miesha Tate is from the era before Pennington and Peña, serving as their coach in 2013. And Jermaine Durandamy will never be in title contention again. Kayla Harrison is the current jolt in the division to many, the same way that Dana saw Raquel and Julianna when they first entered the UFC, as potential challenges for Ronda Rousey, and she won't be here much longer either. Even if Amanda Nunes does return, it won't be for more than one fight. No matter what happens, this fight isn't only the conclusion of their decade-long rivalry, it's the conclusion of an era of the bantamweights being largely panned and even ignored. The boil-over will happen Monday morning. The sound bites and incessant guessing of what's next will fill the algorithms. If Julianna is to win this fight, MMA media is going to rejoice, and Ariel Helwani will be leading the way.
And then we were the boys? Julianna Peña wanted to call us the boys. It was always the belt. Okay, shout out to Julianna Peña, who's fighting for the belt on October 5th. She's one of our own. Julianna Peña, she's one of our own.
Julianna Peña will be on his show that very Monday to get all the sound bites and laughter and making fun of Raquel Pennington and talking down to whoever won between Kayla and Ketlin. And if it is Kayla, he's gonna ask about that, and she is going to demand Amanda Nunes. If Raquel Pennington wins, MMA media will be disappointed that they don't get to sit here and Kayla and Julianna going back and forth. I do wonder what the fans will think if Raquel were to beat Julianna on a 7-fight win streak and basically clearing out the division just like Amanda and Ronda did prior to that. And I'll be in my spare bedroom, quietly listening and watching, thinking to myself, I told y'all.
You're cuter than a little gummy bear and you're lovely little lotus flower. And you look like the girl from Wednesday. Yeah, you do.
It's Saturday, man.
No, Jenna Ortega.
And I'm not surprised, motherfucker.